One of the most frustrating things is when we get a phone call from a member of our community finding out that they've been involved in a crash. They're worried about their car that's been demolished. They're going to miss time from work because they're too hurt to go to work, and they need medical treatment. Medical treatment costs money. And then we start the investigation only to find out that there's no insurance coverage available to help them. And it's just absolutely heartbreaking. We constantly hear the term, well, I have full coverage. I have full coverage. Full coverage doesn't mean anything. It's a marketing gimmick used by the insurance companies that really just means the cheapest insurance possible. Now, why do I say that full coverage is a marketing gimmick and it means nothing? Well, full coverage in the state of Florida means that you have $10,000 in PIP coverage and $10,000 in property damage coverage. That is the lowest policy that you can purchase in the state of Florida, and it really doesn't even protect you. It doesn't protect your assets. It doesn't protect your driver's license, because if you cause an accident and you don't have 1020 in bodily injury coverage, your driver's license can be suspended. So a lot of people purchase coverage and they call their insurance company and say, I just want full coverage. And they don't realize that they're barely even legal to drive and they're not protecting themselves or their family at all. So I think it's really important that our community understands what auto insurance is available, what it means, and why it's important to have certain coverages. Florida is a no-fault state. That does not mean that people are not at fault for auto accidents, but what it means is that your initial medical bills after you've been involved in an accident are covered by your auto insurance carrier through coverage called PIP or no-fault coverage. So personal injury protection has a cap on it, and that cap depends on a couple different factors. As long as you have medical treatment within 14 days after an accident, your cap is $2,500. Then, if a doctor diagnoses you with an emergency medical condition, that can be a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a dentist even, diagnoses you with an emergency medical condition, then that cap increases to $10,000. Now, PIP will pay 80% of your medical bills. They'll reimburse you for 60% of your lost wages. They'll reimburse you for mileage to and from doctor's appointments, prescription medicine, or various supplies that you need as a result of the injuries from the accident. All of those things can be submitted to your PIP coverage, but there's a cap. And when your PIP's exhausted, then what we look at next is, did the at-fault driver have coverage called bodily injury coverage? And that's the coverage that the at-fault driver would have on their automobile insurance policy to protect anyone that they hurt, protecting their body, right? So in Florida, here's the scary thing, we're one of only 2 states in the United States that doesn't require bodily injury coverage. So they sell insurance policies in the state of Florida without any bodily injury coverage at all. That should terrify you. That means that a significant portion of the drivers that are driving around the state of Florida causing accidents don't have any coverage to fix your body if they break your body. Okay, so we look for bodily injury coverage on their policy. Now, why is it important for you to have bodily injury coverage on your policy? Well, that's how you protect your assets. So it's important that you have bodily injury coverage on your policy, but there's coverage that you can purchase to protect you in case the driver who hits you does not have any bodily injury coverage or have enough bodily injury coverage. And that coverage is called uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. We call it for short. Now, in the state of Florida, you can purchase coverage equal to the bodily injury coverage you have on your policy. So in the state of Florida, you cannot have more underinsured motorist coverage or coverage than you have in bodily injury coverage. You can purchase equal to what you have in bodily injury coverage. But the reason why is so important is it's the insurance coverage that protects your body if somebody else causes an accident and doesn't have adequate bodily injury coverage or doesn't have any bodily injury coverage at all. I can use my own personal situation as an example. When I was pregnant with my son, I was involved in a really bad accident. The young lady who hit me didn't have any bodily injury coverage at all. I ended up with permanent injuries, a ton of medical bills, and if I had not had uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist coverage, I would have been in a really heap of trouble financially. So fortunately, I had coverage, and I encourage all of our clients, it is so extremely important to purchase that coverage and make sure that you have it on your policy. Now, coverage has a component to it called stacking coverage. And you can purchase coverage stacking. And what that stacking does is it multiplies it by the amount of your cars in your household. So for me, as an example, at one point I had my husband, myself, and my 2 young adult sons on my insurance policy. So I could purchase, let's say for example, $50,000 in coverage, and I could make it stacking. So that would take $50,000 in coverage, multiplying it by 4 cars on my policy, and then that would mean that I would have $200,000 in coverage available. Now, one thing you want to watch out for is make sure your insurance company isn't selling you stacked coverage when you only have 1 car on your policy. I was speaking with a client recently who had been paying for stacked coverage for years, even though she only had 1 car on her policy. So she was just throwing money away. It was such a waste, and it was really heartbreaking for her when she figured it out. So it's so extremely important to have coverage on your policy. We receive so many phone calls from people who have been involved in an accident, and they're hit by somebody who either has no insurance coverage at all or doesn't have any bodily injury coverage. The most important coverage, in my opinion, that you need to have on your policy to protect you and your family in case you're hurt is coverage, uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. Now, let's talk about property damage coverage. In the state of Florida, everyone is required to carry $10,000 worth of property damage coverage on their policy. What does that cover? That covers property damage for someone else. If you cause an accident, you have to have at least $10,000 in property damage coverage to fix their car or compensate them for the damage done to their car, okay? Now, how do I protect myself? Well, that's through having comprehensive and collision coverage. So comp and collision coverage is coverage that I can carry on my policy to protect my vehicle. You know, we've already talked about the fact that a lot of Florida drivers are driving around without any insurance coverage at all, which should terrify you. And the way that you protect your car is by having comp and collision coverage. So collision coverage is the coverage that you have to fix your vehicle if you've been involved in an accident and the other driver doesn't have adequate property damage coverage, doesn't have any property damage coverage at all. You know, let's say that an at-fault driver causes a big accident with 4 cars damaged. If they only had $10,000 in property damage coverage, even if they have $25,000 or $50,000 in property damage coverage, if they cause an accident with multiple cars, they may not have enough limits to cover the damage done to your car and everyone else's car. So that's a time where it is really important that you have collision coverage on your policy. So what you do in that case is you use your own collision coverage, and then your insurance company goes back after the other driver's insurance company to be paid back, or they go after the other driver to be paid back. But you're not sitting around for 6 months or a year without your car repaired or without being paid for a total loss on your car. So that's why it's so important to have collision coverage. I know a lot of people who drop collision coverage as soon as their car is paid off. I think that's a horrible idea. If you can't afford to wave goodbye to your car and not be compensated for it at all, you need to make sure that you're keeping collision coverage on your policy. Comprehensive coverage is important because that's what compensates you if your car is stolen, if it's vandalized, if it's an act of God. Let's say it floods in a storm or a tree branch falls on your car. That's why it's important to have comprehensive coverage. Now, you can choose to have a deductible on your comprehensive and your collision coverage. Some people choose to have a $500 deductible or even a $1,000 deductible in order to lower your insurance premiums. And that's perfectly fine. But what you need to understand about that is, even if you're involved in an accident that someone else causes, and let's say they don't have adequate insurance coverage, you're going to be stuck with that deductible. So only choose to have the deductible if you're going to be able to afford that. So hopefully now you understand what insurance coverages actually mean. I would really encourage you to immediately pull up your insurance declarations pages, make sure you have that coverage on your policy. And if you don't, call your insurance company and add that today. The unfortunate thing is that you never know when an accident's going to happen, and it is heartbreaking to call and to be in that vulnerable position only to find out that you don't have the coverage to protect you and your family. If you have any questions about what we've talked about today, I'm Melissa Solevilla with Neal Solevilla Personal Injury Lawyers. Give us a call. It is an honor to be able to educate members of our community today to save them from heartbreak down the road.